Hello, welcome to Inclusive Education IRL. Today's episode is going to be about critical race theory and what the heck this is all about, because it's really complicated in the news, but I'm going to try to break it down for you. So quick update, I have not been able to record for a while, but I've been doing a ton of research on critical race theory since December, and the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because every time I looked into it more, the less sense it made, and I've sunk a lot of hours into this, and I watched a ton of YouTube videos and a bunch of like Fox News channel stuff, their reports, and like CNN, and basically any like articles I can find online that were trending, and I just read everything I possibly could and watched on this subject, and it's still kind of unfolding in February 2022, and it's kind of changed more into banning books, which is gonna be the next episode. So no one had really talked about critical race theory almost at all if you look at Google Trends before 2020, and what really set it off was the murder of George Floyd, and there was conversations that happened. People in the country were all kind of looking for answers to how something like that can happen to an American citizen in this country. A lot of people were like, oh, we are beyond racism. This is scary that this happened, and because this isn't supposed to happen if there's no racism. So in response to that, a lot of people started talking about race and kind of noticing that there's inequalities regarding race, and so what was done to kind of address that was when that term critical race theory, it had already existed in the 70s. It's a law term that the reason the law term was created was because the authors of this law, they wanted to examine why there was still inequality after the civil rights movement. So they were looking at laws and how they affect different groups of people and how they affected African Americans and other minority groups negatively. So like they started to look at law in that way. So that's where that term critical race theory comes from. And those people are still alive and well, still doing interviews on YouTube if you look it up. And they ask them questions about, like, is CRT teaching white people to hate themselves? And they're like, no, it's not. Like, we're just happy that people are talking about it as a term. When the term really started so the first time that the term is mentioned by President Trump, it was already out of context of what it was, which is kind of funny because he warned federal agencies against critical race theory, labeling it as divisive. And he actually tried to follow up with an executive order, making sure that the United States could not train people in critical race theory. That has never really happened in the textbook definition of it. That is a law theory examining laws, and a lot of people say, it's a college level course, it's a course in law school that a lot of lawyers haven't taken. So that's what the actual term means, but it's come to mean a lot more, especially within the United States. We're using it kind of as a cultural like war kind of thing, and I want to go more into what that means to me. Since 2021 has started, which is basically a year ago from now, so since 2021, the term critical race theory, although a lot of schools have been shut down during 2021 digital, a lot of parents have been really involved and picked up this term because there's been so much media kind of demonizing critical race theory, and that it's being taught in schools, and that we have to be very careful about what that is, and to not allow teachers and staff, and I would say like left-wing media, to kind of downplay what's really happening in schools. So what I'm really talking about is like Fox News definitely was one of the promoters of this idea. There's a guy called Christopher Rufo, which that's kind of like critical race theory is like his child. Like he helped promote it on Fox News. What people have kind of picked up on critical race theory is that it is harmful. They made it into something super scary. I watched a bunch of videos about like parents at PTA meetings, like parent-teacher meetings. Parents are like super concerned about if critical race theory is being taught to their children. If it's not, I basically all the parents are concerned if it's being taught. They're not concerned about it not being taught. So the concerns from what I've seen are like in two separate camps. Some parents are saying that, look, racism, so this is where it already goes off track. It does not track to how it already stops making sense to me right here. So some parents are saying critical race theory should not be taught because I am a person of color, and just because I'm a person of color does not mean that I can be successful. That's one type of narrative that has been pushed to parents. And then there's a separate narrative that is the most dominant that I've seen in the news. I can't say all of them are, but a lot of them are white, and a lot of them are concerned about their children feeling shame or hating themselves based on the actions of white people in the past. So like these parents are really concerned. They feel like their children are being wronged. A lot of them are withdrawing their students, are organizing, which is great, and like petitioning to the schools to make changes. And this has really picked up steam. They put pressure on different teachers that have kind of tried to be more inclusive in their teaching practice by like asking pronouns for their students and teaching about the history of our country and how it's persecuted it's basically every ethnic group that's ever lived here or has come here, which is, it's just the facts. Oh, so these parents, they have come for these teachers' jobs. They've come for the administrators' jobs that have stood by their teachers that are trying to teach facts about our country and make others feel welcomed in the space. They've gone after them, try to get them fired as a collective. My experience personally with the CRT has been one of like, what's going on? Like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't really watch the news very often or try to keep up with them, like, reading wise. So 2021, I did not realize how big of a topic it was. Most of my teaching in 2021 was done digitally. I did summer in Los Angeles. Then I moved to Phoenix and I came back in person. So California and Arizona are different places. In Los Angeles, there was no CRT. In Arizona, or debate, there's no CRT debate that I knew of. In Arizona, there is some at a state level, depending on what district you're in. But the school district that I work in is a lower income. So no one really is concerned about CRT being taught. There's differences, like in terms of like the state and like local level. Like we really had to fight to get masks on our students. Those are the differences that I see. But CRT hasn't really affected me personally. Like I've seen in like media sources and other teachers that I've interacted with online have met through that. You know, a lot of people have lost their jobs because of it, because parents are saying, like, accusing teachers of teaching CRT, which is really, it feels like it's just like a political boogeyman of teaching. Basically, anything they disagree with could be labeled as CRT, which makes it really hard to define, because whatever definition we're using, it's constantly moving. Yeah, people have lost their jobs, so others have quit because they don't like where it's going. Like, I haven't looked into it too much, but I feel like there was a big controversy with certain states wanted teachers to turn in their lesson plans for the whole year before they met their students, in order to ensure that there was no CRT curriculum in their lessons. And more and more we're seeing more books being banned, which was like books that are pretty much considered canon. Zora Neale Hurston, like Their Eyes Were Watching God, To Kill a Mockingbird, I'm not sure which other ones, but like pretty well accepted and acknowledged books have been banned. I feel like it's been and it's all like the backlash from like parents, which parents have a lot of power in the school districts and over their education of their, over the educational system, because it is there to serve them. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of the parents that are using this power are misusing it, and a lot of them come from the same background, which is like wealthy, white, and very conservative, and they want to maintain their points of views. But the other side of this whole thing is that, everyone else, all the other parents and teachers, they have their own opinions too. Just because they don't have the time or like power, like financial power, to be able to push their agenda forward in our current system, doesn't mean that their opinions are less than. A lot of people that I've talked to, my friends, I want to shout out Erica specifically. Like, she really got me thinking. I was like, what do you think about, critical race theory? She's a parent. What she said was that, she wishes that would be taught more in school, so like people could understand about other cultures, and as Americans that we would be able to have more empathy towards each other. Which I was like, wow, that's it. That's what I want. I want people to have more empathy towards each other. That's basically what I want to do as a teacher. That's it. That's the goal, at least for me personally. Like, that's what I really value. Critical race theory is basically is a term that's being used as a boogeyman to, like, it's scary. It's teaching people to hate themselves. It's teaching division, like it's sowing division amongst classmates and people of different races. But what I think it is, really, critical race theory is just being used as a tool to kind of stop the conversation of racism and how it affects people. That's the function that I see it serving currently, especially in the media. And it just kind of moves the conversation away from, like, how can we collaborate with each other within schools. Like, I think there's definitely a lot to be learned from our history and talking about race directly. A lot of teachers shy away from it, no matter what race they are or what age group they are. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. People are like, I haven't done enough research. I need to read more about this. Like, I'm not sure if it's my place to talk about race or racism, but it definitely is. Like, you know a lot more about it than the students, most likely, or you might learn a lot from the students themselves. And the way that we teach our history as well, there's a lot to be learned about how certain groups of people have been treated. Basically, African Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, cycles of violence, cycles of genocide, cycles of exploitation. Like, it just happens over and over, and it's not like a new thing. Mass incarceration, like, how are those laws set up as well? There's so much that could be talked about in that space, that really isn't talked about. Like, for example, at Black History Month right now, the school just kind of gives out like a random fact about a random black person in the U.S. And it's really disheartening to see or to hear in the morning, because like no one thinks about it twice. Not even the kid that's reading it. Like, she just fumbles every single word because she's never read any of them before. I think that's hilarious. But we have a long way to go to kind of celebrate our students' heritage and like their contributions to this country. You know, I think that's the biggest challenge. Like, there's no huge conspiracy of teachers teaching like critical race theory, because a lot of them, you know, aren't willing or they don't feel capable of doing it. And honestly, we don't have enough time in the day to plan anything extra. And race is always seen as something extra in the day. It's not seen as like the most important or the most vital thing to our students' education. Yeah, like my kids are like, I'm so focused on them learning their letter sounds and like their letters and like how to write in between the lines that like race seems like such a distant topic. They get it, and they get it. Like, they get it. They understand like power structures and that not everyone is treated the same, even if they don't know each individual letter in the alphabet. It's something that affects them whether they like it or not. So that's gonna be our episode on critical race theory. It's still an unfolding book. The next episode, I'm gonna talk about the banned book list that's going around. A lot of different states are pushing for this legislation. A bunch of states try to go after critical race theory, like, or even at the local level. But since there's no definition, they can't really do that. So now they're just banning particular books. And exciting news for the podcast is that on my podcast website, there are now transcripts for all the episodes. The transcript for this episode will also be up around the same time that I release the episode. So that's awesome. And please rate this podcast 5 stars on your Apple. Look at the podcast description. There's my Twitter. I am now on Twitter. So if you're listening to this if you've gotten this far, thank you. And you can tweet at me your reactions from now on, because I'm going to have little Twitter associated with this podcast. So yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, let me know. Tweet at me. Screenshot that 5-star review. And I'll see you on the next one.